We have so many different things societally that tell us to not like ourselves, from the beauty industry that is telling you this little wrinkle is something you have to take care of right now. Otherwise, you're going to be ugly, to TikTok making us dumber and dumber and dumber. You have all these different aspects of society that are trying to make you feel bad about yourself so that they can then sell you something,
Mhm.
not knowing that the things that will make you feel the absolute best, they're almost all of them are free. From journaling to breathwork, meditation, these are things that will help you really have a foundation where you are okay with you.
Hi, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah Yudkin, and I'm a relationship anxiety coach who's here to help you learn about all things love, relationships, and how to navigate anxiety in your relationships. If relationships are really meaningful to you and you've gotten any value from my videos so far, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to my channel and become a member of the You Love and You Learn community. This goes a long way to supporting me in this channel and makes sure that you don't miss any new videos coming out. And if you enjoy this video, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a like and a comment so I know what's resonating. Thank you for watching, and let's get into it. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to have this conversation today because I'm sitting down with a guest who is a public speaking coach, a speechwriter, and a professor who helps people find their voice and use their voice and show up authentically. And he also happens to have been a castaway in Survivor season 48. So, welcome, Shauhin. I'm very excited to have you here.
Excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. Especially
Yeah.
running into you and then all of a sudden, okay, cool. Now we're on the other side of the screens.
Yeah, for sure. And when we
Hi.
did run into each other, I felt like you just spoke so well. You carried yourself
Hi.
so well. I mean, it translated from what I saw as a Survivor fan to just who you are as a person. And then when I dug into a little bit more about what you do and your mission in the world, it felt like a really cool opportunity to chat.
Oh man, I'm so excited to be here. I mean, yeah, I think that's part of the deal when you put yourself out there on something like national television. You're risking exposing who you are. And that is scary. It's awesome. It can be either of those things. It's probably both of those things, right? And I felt very sure going out there that I would see the version of myself that I wanted to see. But that wasn't always the case, right? Especially for people, a lot of people who go out there, they're not sure what version of themselves they're going to see. And that seemed terrifying, a terrifying prospect to me, for sure.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You say you knew you were going to like the version of yourself you saw. Has that always been
Yeah.
the case? Have you always been proud of who you are, or is that something you had to cultivate?
Yeah, I think that you have to tackle that with intentionality if you're going to go like who you are. That has to be, I think, an intentional practice because we have so many different things societally that tell us to not like ourselves, right? From the beauty industry that is telling you this little wrinkle is something you have to take care of right now. Otherwise, you're going to be ugly, to, you know, TikTok making us dumber and dumber and dumber, to you have all these different aspects of society that are trying to make you feel bad about yourself so that they can then sell you something,
Mhm.
not knowing that the thing that will make you feel best about yourself is free, right? The things that will make you feel the absolute best, they're almost all of them are free. From journaling to breathwork, meditation, these are things that will help you really have a foundation where you are okay with you. And once you're there, exposing yourself to the risk of putting yourself on national television is not as scary as a prospect as it once was. It's thrilling, right, for me in so many ways, and for a lot of the castaways, it's thrilling because you get to go do this insane adventure. But making sure I was in the right mental space going out there was certainly something that I took very seriously.
Yeah, because I imagine, I mean, I'm sure there's probably a lot of, with anything like love, hate,
Mm.
people are like, oh my gosh, I love who this person is, or
Yeah,
oh my gosh, that person's, bothering me on the show, not even just on a show, but in real life when
in
you
real
meet
life.
people. And
Yeah,
the feedback that is more negative, I think probably stings less if you are okay with you and you like you. Whereas, I know from experience where if you get feedback and you're also kind of questioning the same thing about yourself, and they're like, how do you know what you're talking about? And you're like, I don't know if I do know what I'm talking
yeah.
about, then
Well, yeah,
it
they
hurts.
get that little worm in your ear, and then it repeats itself over and over and over again. And the Survivor, there is media training that a packet and stuff. But for me personally, I had a video go viral a couple years back, like 20 million views across a bunch of different platforms. Like it was crazy. And it was a relatively innocuous video of like me throwing candy at kids on Halloween. Like just opening the door and like chucking candy at them. And I got death threats from that video, like 4 or 5 death threats from that video. And I wasn't scared. I was curious about these
Mm-hmm.
people. Why are you sending death threats to some stranger on the internet? And I would ask them, and some of them were just crazy people, like, oh, you're just insane. You have lost your mind. You're not seeing things normally. But there were, a good handful, 3 or 4 of them that I reached out to that, said really awful things. And I reached out to them like, hey, I'm a human. And you'll be surprised, 3 or 4 of them were like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I lost myself.
Mm.
And having those interactions, way back then was instructive for me in the next step of, okay, cool. What if I did more of this type of stuff? Or how would I handle this kind of feedback? Because I see what the internet does to people that go on television. I'm not stupid. I see what happens. And do I want to expose myself to that? I went on the show. I started applying for the show at 35, but by then I knew what the deal was. And I think
Mm.
that that's a different thing than when you're 20 years old. When you're 20 years old and you're going to be an influencer and you're all over TikTok and you're all over Instagram, you have, 100,000 followers. How a 20-year-old has the faculties to deal with all that stuff is beyond me. Because at 20, it would have tortured me.
Yeah.
Tortured me. When I
Yeah.
was 20 years old, I was 23, 24, 25, I was getting in Facebook arguments all day long. And they would torture me. I would be sitting there fuming with my thumbs active as hell. And I realized, okay, I don't want to give my energy to this. This is not where I want to be spending my time, my effort, my energy. You only get so many fucks to give. And I'm going to give
Yeah.
fucks about some random dude on Facebook that I met at a party 3 years ago. And now he's arguing about why this and that and the other thing. It's like, I'm not interested. I don't want to do that. I'm going to save my persuasive energy for the people that matter. And what I've learned since then is your haters add to your algorithm. They're
Mm.
actually the most important part of this whole entire thing. If you want to be a content creator, if you want to have a personality online, if you want to grow your platform, I thank my haters for their service. It's really important to have them because your lovers don't make you famous. They don't
Mm.
engage in the same way. You don't get under their skin in the same way. The people that love you, they're not the ones that are, commenting on every single video. I have one hater. I love him so much. His name is Uncle Milton. Shout out to Uncle Milton. He commented on like 4 or 5 videos in a row. I don't have a single fan that comments on 4 or 5 videos in a row. And every time he comments, my video gets shown to 10 more people, right? That's
Mm.
how the algorithm works. Comments really skyrocket your performance. And
Yeah.
so changing my frame for what these people that don't know me think about was huge in adjusting my mental safety,
Mm.
like my protection of my mental space was hugely important through the whole process. Because for sure, I mean, you put yourself on television, people are going to hate you. They just don't put people that you're not going to have a strong opinion about one way or the other. You don't get to be on, something like Survivor, I don't think.
Yeah, for
They,
sure.
they want people that are going to create strong opinions.
Yeah. And you
I think.
explained beautifully. Thank you for sharing that, by the way, about just
Yeah,
the reframing. That's such an important piece of showing up because otherwise it will drive you crazy, like you said. But
totally.
to the point of someone who can make an impact on a show like that, you explained beautifully when we were talking and first connected about how you expressed who you are and what you're about and what drives you when you were applying to Survivor. And I thought it was
Yeah.
just a really cool thing to understand you more as a person in that way. So can you walk through
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So, the Survivor application thing is like film a 3-minute video just talking about yourself and show us who you are, right? Like it's very nebulous, like what the idea is. Show us who you are is a question that, how do you answer that?
Yeah.
How do you then answer that in 3 minutes and feel like, yeah, I have this vibrant, dynamic life. I've accomplished all these different things. I can't possibly fit that into a video that's 3 minutes long. And so I started really thinking, what's my ethos? What's my driving force? What's the thing that if I was going to summarize myself in one line, if I was going to summarize who I am and how I would play the game, how do I really summarize that? And that actually sent me on a path of a redefinition of myself. I
Mm.
had already started the process. My father passed away in 2021, late 2021. And when, as a young man, your father passes away, you just go through a redefinition of yourself, right? Because you define yourself in context of your father, no matter what your relationship with your father is. And I was already starting that process. And I had just filmed my audition tape when my father had passed away. Like,
Mm.
as my father was in that process, I had filmed my first audition tape. And I watched it back and I was like, my first audition tape, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that guy. I watched my 3 minute definition of myself and I thought, I'm not that guy anymore. I don't want
Mm.
to be that guy anymore. And, I went on a road trip with my best friend. We did 40 days in 20 something national parks and sat on a mountaintop about it and explored, like, okay, I've done this insane, 8 mile hike. I have more to do later. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm uncomfortable. Okay, time for some self exploration. And came down off of that and realized, okay, there are things that I need to change. There are practices that I need to institute. There are things that I need to do regularly in order to really feel the way that I feel right now coming off of this mountain. And meditation, I started meditating every day. Breath work, I really started getting into breath work, especially because meditation wasn't that interesting to me. This is a weird tangent, but I have something called aphantasia. It's the inability to see with your mind's eye. So guided meditations don't work for me. Imagine a river. It's like that doesn't do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
But breath work is a form of meditation where you're active and the activity is the meditation. And so that worked a lot better for me. And since then, a lot of other types of meditation. But anyway, a lot of journaling. And then on the other side of that, oh, wow, I've redefined myself. I've changed a lot of different things about me. A lot of thinking patterns are now gone that once were there. Let's submit another audition tape.
Mm.
And that redefinition, I think, spoke much more to who I really wanted to be and who I actually was, rather than this performative thing that I had submitted the first time. And
Mm.
being performative actually was a huge struggle for me. I did speech and debate in college. I'm a speech and debate professor. I coach a speech and debate team. And so performance is a huge part of my every single day. And when you are a performer like that, when the cameras are off, when the lights are down, who are you? You've
Mm.
been performing so much that is the performance the same person as who you are now? And is there a disconnect between those two things? All of those different things interwove for me in, okay, I don't want to be the performative guy anymore. I want to be my authentic self, because then it's not as exhausting. If I'm just me all the time, it's much easier. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not exhausted by the end of the day. I don't feel like I have to put on a performance. I don't have to feel like I put on a show. I just get to be myself. Okay, what is that? Who is that? Who is that person? And 3 journals later, I feel closer to who I am than I ever have before. I feel more
Mm.
okay putting myself out there because I don't feel like I'm having to perform. And I like to perform. I am a performer by nature. And it's not that I wanted to get rid of the performative parts of myself. I like those parts of myself. I like the performer in me. But I wanted to integrate, okay, the over the top performer, the person who is not me, I don't want anymore.
Mm.
The person who is me, I want that person to be able to perform. I want to turn that person up. That person's way more interesting. I want that person to be the louder person. And that's what I've always taught. When I think back to what I've taught my students, I've always tried to turn the volume up on them, the actual them.
Mm.
Because when they are louder, they're more interesting. When they are their authentic selves, when they feel confident, when they feel their best, they are the best.
Yeah.
So they perform their best. And that's what I've noticed through, almost 15 years of coaching is
Mm.
when people feel themselves, they perform the best. When they just are themselves a little bit louder, that's the big zeitgeist that has changed in public speaking. It's no longer trying to pretend to be somebody else, trying to pretend to be presidential or whatever. That's not it.
Mm-hmm.
It's be you a little bit louder. I did that with myself, and now I do that with others.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have an example of the performer version of you for the first audition? I'm not saying for someone who's even doing Survivor related things, just for
Yeah.
my own understanding of what you meant. What was a version of you that you looked back on that audition tape and you're like, that wasn't really me or the version of me I wanted to be portraying?
The,
And then
the,
what
the
would be
best
the
example
new?
is the like, so many people I assume now in their audition tape will do something like, oh, I didn't see you there to the camera.
Mm,
You know what I mean? That type of thing. It's like, give me a fucking break, man. Who are you? You've wasted
hmm
time with not showing me who you are.
hmm
And if you're not willing to be who you are and you're going to, I don't know, recite lines to me, I have planned things that I wanted to say
mm,
instead of just getting on there and telling them who I am.
yeah.
And, different people I think are going to get cast for different things, right? They need a variety of people. So they're not going to cast, 18 people that are like, I am exactly what I am. And it's not going to happen. But I do think that they want to make sure that they actually know who you are, because I think it's a risk to put somebody out personally. I think it's a risk to put somebody out there that they don't know. That'd be a
Yeah.
huge risk. You're talking about Wednesday nights, 8 p.m., CBS, and they don't know what they're putting out there. That's not going to happen. So if you don't know who you are, if you don't have a solid definition of yourself, then they're not going to know who you are.
Yeah.
And that goes for everything. Screw Survivor. That goes for your job interview. If they don't know who you are by the end of the interview, if they don't understand you because you don't understand you, then they don't know what they're hiring,
Mm,
right? And again, this applies across the board. You go on a date. If you don't know who you are, how are you talking about yourself with your date, with your future significant other?
hmm
They're going to be the ones to figure out who you are by asking you a bunch of questions. Like, that's not it. You got to figure out who you are. I mean, how many breakups have we heard where it's like, yeah, I broke up with my partner because I didn't know who I was. I need to go
mm,
find myself.
hmm
How many times? How many people?
Yeah.
So many, right? I needed to go find myself. Okay, I get it. I get it because we define ourselves, especially when we're young. You're in your mid 20s and you get in a relationship and you define yourself by your significant other. It happened to me, it happened to everybody
hmm
because you didn't know who you were when you were 25, but you knew that you liked this person and this person liked you and you have a lot in common. But
Yeah.
if you didn't know yourself super well, then who is really getting together? Like, okay, you can enmesh, define yourselves together, but at some point you might wake up and go, wait a second, that's not really me. I didn't agree to that.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was just listening to a podcast with Simon Sinek yesterday where he talks about
Mm.
relationships are just people being willing to grow together. So I actually met
Amen.
my now husband when I was 25, but because
Wow.
both of us are so introspective and kind of have been on our own individual journeys, I feel like as long as you're still intentionally trying to be your most authentic self, it feels like you can still learn about yourself in relationship. But there's people who don't take that on, I would say. And so I do want to get into next how we can start to understand ourselves and actually be ourselves, because I feel like that's really the
Yes.
crux of what you are doing very well.
Yeah. If you're not asking yourself hard questions, then you're not going to find your authentic self. Asking and answering difficult questions. And I think for me, a lot of that happened in a journal. You ask yourself the question and then you answer that question in the journal. And I think that through answering those hard questions, you get to know really well who you are. And I don't think it matters what type of journaling you do. I like handwriting. I think
hmm
that type of slow processing is really important for your brain. Obviously, there's studies and whatever that show how healthy it is, but I'm not here to convince someone that's not going to do it. If you haven't ever done it and you're not going to do it, like, okay, so be it. But video journal, ask yourself tough questions and record it so that you have it, so that you can look back on it. There's nothing I wouldn't give for a journal of my thoughts when I was 20 years old, or 21, or 24, or 27, and I don't have it.
hmm
And I'm so grateful. Like, my 50-year-old self is so grateful that I have so many journals full of my thoughts from 34, 35, 36, 37. 30. I write in a journal every single day. And every single day I write in a journal, I feel like I get to know myself a little bit better. I feel
mm
like I get to become a little bit more authentic. And so I think journaling is a huge part of that. I think meditation is a huge part of that. Just time where you get to clear your mind so that you can approach your day, your life from a position of clarity. Breathwork is a huge part of that for me too, because that is knowing your body. I feel like I can do things with my breath that were like, that doesn't make any sense. How can you do that? I feel like I can send tingly feelings all over my body just using my breath. That knowledge of your body and that interaction of breath and body makes me feel incredibly confident in who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weird thing. For years, I said, I don't understand what people mean by I know my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I think women have a much more dynamic and developed conversation with their body because so many more things happen every single month with their body, right? They go
Mm-hmm.
through so many different hormonal phases every single month with their body. They have to deal with so many different things with their body. And that conversation between them and their physician is so different than the conversation that men have with their physician, right? Women have a much harder time being just believed with their physician than men do. And so I think that forces women to have a much more developed relationship with their body, a conversation that they have with their body. That for me really started and really took off when I started doing breath work. I started to
Wow.
have a much more vibrant conversation with my own body. And then, when you have those practices, journaling, meditation, breath work, simple things that are free, by the way, you start to gain the ability to, I think, do that with others a lot easier as well. But
Mm-hmm.
now when I'm asked questions about who I am, or when I'm presented with situations where I need to show who I am, there's no thinking process there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, okay, I've established this ethos for who I am already. I already know who I am.
Mm-hmm. All of those are so important. I actually just started a breathwork facilitator certification, so I'm really excited
Yes.
about that. It's been such a
Cool.
key part for me. And even an example of what you were just saying the other day, I feel like I woke up with all this scattered energy and heavy feelings, like feeling loneliness and
Mm,
shame, and just, feeling like I had to do all this stuff on my own. And then I did a breathwork video, and it was so clear that I just needed to talk to my loved ones. It's not that I had to go fix all
mm.
these problems, but I just needed to let people in on what I was feeling. And it's not
Yeah.
always these big things you have to go do after. It's just like, okay, after all
Yeah.
that noise was cleared for a bit, I felt a little bit more spacious. And now I'm like, okay, here's a next step. It can just be so much more simple.
For me, it felt like, and I think that you're on it. It feels like there are so many weights on you, right? You have all this weight on you. And sometimes, in order to lift that weight, in order to get rid of that weight, you want to do meditation or breath work or journaling. But when you finish the first time, like if you finish your first meditation, it doesn't feel like the weight is lifted, at least for me. It doesn't feel like immediately that weight is lifted the very first time I did a meditation. It didn't feel like it's any different. But it's as if you're holding 100 pounds and that meditation, you took 1 pound off.
Mm,
Well, yeah, you're not going to feel the weight being lifted after one. But the next day you wake up and you do it again, and that pound hasn't been put back on because you're doing it again. Instead, you're taking the second pound off and then the third pound. And then 50 days later, it's clear that the weight is so much lighter. It's so much easier for you to work through your day because you did the journaling, which takes some weight off. You did the meditation, which takes some weight off. And now you feel like you can kind of flow through the world a lot easier and you can operate on a much higher playing field because you don't have that weight. You don't have those racing thoughts in your mind that are just going and going and going. You've done something to alleviate
mm,
those racing thoughts that you have to parse through every single time you make a decision, every single time you're confronted with a question of who you are, every single time you're confronted with an ethical dilemma. You're having to parse through all of that before you get to your decision. And that energy is being utilized at such a high rate. And yet, if you do a little bit of meditation every single day, you do a little bit of housekeeping every single day, you know, we are hoarders. The natural state of the human brain without meditation and without breath work and without journaling is hoarding. You hoard those thoughts in your mind. And meditation, breath work, journal, it acts like a USB plug that you plug into your brain. You download all that stuff onto that, download that terabyte of information onto the USB, and then you take it out of your brain. And now you're free of it
mhm.
because your brain has externalized it. Your brain has externalized what it is. And you don't need to hold on to it the entire time. You don't have to hoard it.
Another way that it seems like you help people tap into authenticity on your website, you share that you help people find their voice, heal their
Mm,
voice, and use their voice.
yeah.
What has to happen for people to do those three things? When you're guiding someone, what does that look like?
Yeah, so the method by which I help people find their authentic selves is communication. That how we are communicating who we are determines whether we've found our authentic self.
Mm,
So, first, you have to find your voice. What are you passionate about? What do you care about? What is the thing that wakes you up in the morning that you're excited to go do? And when you identify that for somebody, now they have the motivation to heal their voice. Okay, I really care about these things. They're profound to me. Now, in order for you to go use your voice, in order for you to go conquer those things or do those things or contribute to those things, you need to heal your voice. For healing your voice, and sorry, to stay on find your voice for just a second. There are so many people who don't know what their passion is.
mm,
And identifying that with people and pressing them on, I don't think that you believe that. I don't think that you actually care about that has been one of those coaching moments for me that as a coach, pressing somebody, I don't buy it, and seeing them either defend it so that I finally do believe it or go, wait a second, I don't care about that.
mm,
Oh, and then the real work begin, right? Now we get to find out what you're passionate about, which is such a cool exploration to watch people go through. And I'm lucky, as a college professor, I watch people go through that exploration every single day at work. When you're 19, 20, 21 years old, you are exploring what it is you're passionate about. You're trying to find your passion. And now doing it with 30 and 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds, exploring them so that we can find their passion is the coolest job in the world,
mm,
right? And then we move into heal your voice. In order to heal your voice, you need to get to know yourself better. You need to understand who you are better. And that is where the journaling, meditation, breath work, that is where all of that stuff comes into play, along with exercise and diet. Like it's a whole thing. In order to heal your voice, in order to feel like your voice is worthy of being spoken, you need to have it healed. You need
mm,
to heal all of the different little things, the little confusions that have happened with your ability to communicate clearly and effectively. And then using your voice is really about how do I make somebody an effective communicator so that they are listened to, so that when they speak, people don't just turn away or not pay attention, so that they're not rambling, so that they are clear, so that not only are they clear, but they're persuasive and
mm,
entertaining. We live in a society that requires you are entertaining. Our attention spans just have gotten shorter. If you want to read a book about that, Soul and Focus is an amazing book about what's happened to our attention. And okay, you're competing against this. You're
mm,
competing against this. You're competing against a cell phone. You're competing against trillions of dollars that have been spent to take your attention. So understand that, be aware of that. And now here are the methods for speaking in a way that people are going to pay attention.
mm,
People are going to understand what you say, and they're going to look at you as, I want to listen more to this person and what they're going to say. So, how do we do that? Structure is king in public speaking, first, right? You want to make sure that when you're speaking in a structured way. Statement, evidence, relate it back to your thesis overall, and then transition. The SERT method, SERT. Statement,
mm,
evidence, or example, right? Relate that back to your thesis, and then transition to your next point. That methodology, that structure underlies kind of everything I do at the public speaking stage. This is
mm,
okay, cool. You've found your voice. You know what you're going to talk about. You've healed your voice. Okay. You have that confidence to now go forward and speak. And now here's how you're going to speak. You're going to speak in a structured way. You're going to speak understanding that entertainment has to be part of what you speak. And then you're going to know what you start with and you're going to know what you finish with before you speak. And
mm,
then last, you need to know your stories. It's crazy the number of people that I'll ask about their experiences and they don't even know how to talk about them.
mm,
Or worse, they focus on the negative. You know, you'll ask people about their survivor experience. Ask someone about their vacation. How many people end up talking to you about what happened in the airport?
mm.
Unbelievable. What? Why are you telling me about the problem you had at the airport? You went to Turks and Caicos. What's wrong with you? And instead of telling the awesome story about the crazy thing that happened on the beach that was unbelievable, or making that the story, right? It
Mm,
wasn't unbelievable. It was a boring day on the beach. All we did was sit there on the beach. That's one way to say it, right? Or you can say, man, I sat down on the beach, my heels dug into that perfect white sand, and for 8 hours, I just wiggled my feet and watched the sand go up and down my feet. And that's what I did for 8 hours. And it was the most beautiful thing that I'd ever seen in my entire life.
mm,
What a difference that makes in your own brain. That's the
yeah.
crazy part is your loops control your memory. And that's a huge part of what I teach people. If you're going to go tell stories, pick your stories wisely.
Mm,
Pick your stories. You're going to go have these amazing experiences so long as you define them as amazing experiences, so long as you talk about them as amazing experiences, because people are going to ask. People are going to ask, how was work? And you get to decide, how was work? That's your moment to decide.
um,
You go on vacation, people are going to ask, how was it? Show me pictures. You get to decide. Are you going to talk about how you missed your flight? Are you going to talk about how the person at the hotel was rude to you? Are you going to talk about how your food came out and it was cold? Or are you going to talk about your heels digging into the sand and how beautiful it was?
yeah.
Because whichever one you talk about, that's going to be your memory. And I see it happen in the craziest place, Survivor. I see how some people are talking about their experience as this devastating, awful, horrible thing. And no doubt, devastating, awful, horrible things happen out there. You get blindsided by people that you feel like you've known for a decade. Or you can talk about it like, dude, look at this amazing thing that happened out there. And look at this incredible thing that happened out there. And look at this awesome thing that happened out there. Because awesome things happened out there too.
Mm,
And I was witness to resilience my whole life. My whole life, I grew up knowing that I was the child of people who escaped a country. They had to escape. I never had to escape anything. Escape,
mhm.
that's a crazy word with your life at risk. Escape, figure that out. And so knowing that, contextualizing that, okay, nothing's that bad. I don't need to frame anything that poorly. I can frame everything better than that because I know what my context is. I know what's going on. Don't have to complain about stuff. And that's not to say it's not like a toxic positivity thing, like everything is roses. It's not what I'm saying. But I am saying you get to choose your focus.
Yeah.
You don't have to be positive about anything. You don't have to ignore the negative things. But even when you're talking about negative things, you can frame that appropriately.
Yeah.
You can frame that negativity appropriately. You don't
Yeah.
want to avoid negative experiences. It's not what it's about. But making sure that you're framing that stuff appropriately is important.
Yeah. An unlock from this conversation for me is that part of authenticity is not to ignore parts of your experience, but to make sure that the story you're telling yourself about your life or about who you are or about your experience is actually something that feels helpful. Like I love the word helpful because sometimes
Yeah.
people are like positive or negative, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative.
Positive.
Is it helpful for
Helping
you? Is
you.
it
Yeah,
inspiring you, or is it motivating you, or is it helping you feel more
totally. Is it
comforted?
serving you? Is that
Exactly.
serving you? Like you're holding on to that real tight. Do you want to be holding on to that? Is that something you need? And
Yeah.
asking yourself those questions, dude, this is what happened literally in my journal, 3, 4 years ago. I recognized that certain people that are around me in my life, everything is framed negatively. And I saw that seeping into the way that I framed things. Nope, not doing that.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
doing that. I refuse to engage. I'm not doing that. I'm going to make a conscious effort to frame things in the accurate way, in the
Yeah.
actual zoomed out way, and having a good understanding of the actual thing that is happening in front of me.
Yeah.
It rained at the concert and the set got canceled early. I got to go to a concert. I
Yeah.
got to go. Like, give me a break. You're like, it sucks. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Now I have this crazy experience where I had to like run out of the rain and hide. And come on, man. It's crazy. It's crazy
Yeah.
that what can happen in your brain when you start framing things from the appropriate standpoint.
Yeah. I love that reminder. Well, before I ask my last couple questions, which will be both shorter, I feel like authenticity is such a buzzword right now, but it's
Hmm.
with
Everywhere.
social media, it can also be hard to know what is this thing I believe because I genuinely believe that. versus what is the cool thing to think or feel, and what
Mm.
did my favorite influencer tell me, or what did my favorite person on Survivor tell me to think? How do we try to clear some of the noise, or how do we discern what is actually our authentic belief or action versus what we think is
Mm.
what someone else would do?
I love this question. And you need to sit down with a blank sheet of paper and ask yourself the question. You have all these thoughts about immigration, right? That are happening right now in our country. Cool. What do you know about immigration? Not not what has someone told you. Blank sheet of paper, write down how the immigration process works. Ready, go. How many sentences do you think the average American is going to get into how immigration works? One, they have no clue.
Yeah.
They have no clue, but they have all these opinions. And when you get someone to admit their ignorance, then they can start doing research.
Mm,
Because if they're researching from a place where they don't admit their own ignorance, they think they know things, then they're not going to be persuaded.
mm,
Right. So, wonderful study that I can't remember the exact details of the study, and I almost want to just Google it real quick. But they took subjects and they asked them all these questions and they asked them their confidence interval about these things. And then they took other subjects and made them do a set of math problems under time constraint. And then they asked them the questions after that. What happened? Their confidence interval lowered after they did the math problems
mm.
because they realized they're stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. When you get the only way to persuade someone, by the way, like stop trying to persuade people on the internet. It's not where persuasion happens. It's just serving to add to the algorithm of the anger machine. If you really want to persuade someone, the first thing you need to do is get them to admit that they're ignorant, that they don't know things, and you need to sit next to them while they do that. So you both need to sit there and on a blank sheet of paper, write down everything you know about this. So if you want to convince someone about immigration, right? You want to convince someone one way or the other. Both of you need to sit down with a blank sheet of paper and write down everything you think you know about immigration. No looking up anything up, no sources, just what do you know? Then you guys can look up things together. The second step is you look things up together
Mm,
on sources that you agreed beforehand were going to be credible.
mm,
That's the only way to persuade. To find genuine change of what people think are their core beliefs, you have to get them to admit they're stupid first.
mm,
And so, what would I say about listening to what's going on from an influencer, from this person, or from that person? Ask yourself what you know. What do you know? Write it down. Commit it to a piece of paper. Because people will say they know all kinds of things. But once they commit it to paper and then they go look it up, then that's a whole different story.
mm.
Hard to do, by the way. Hard to persuade. Persuasion's difficult, very difficult. But you
Yeah.
have to get people to admit that they don't know things first.
Yeah. And maybe the authentic thing would then be to say, I don't actually know the opinion I have, or
So
I'm still
important.
learning about this thing. And it doesn't even have to be
So
political.
important.
It's just like, should I
Yeah.
do cold plunges or not? Should I have this hard conversation? How should I do this? Like, you can just
Yeah.
admit, I don't
I
know
don't
yet.
know.
I'm figuring
Yeah, I
it
don't know.
out.
What a powerful statement. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there are things that you have a responsibility to go look up. There are things you have a responsibility to know, and there are things you don't have a responsibility to know, right? I think having like a general knowledge of what's going on in the world is important. The difficulty right now is media literacy is at an all-time low. You don't know how to parse what is propaganda and what is real. And that ends up affecting who you are. The propaganda that's out there affects who you are, which is why if you don't have that relationship with yourself, if you don't have that private time where you're writing in a journal about what you think and what you want and who you are, you don't have that private time where you're working with your breath, where you're exercising, where you're meditating, well, then you're letting this iPhone and the tech billionaires of the world determine who you are.
Mm,
You're algorithmically going to be determined who you are.
yeah.
You're going to be controlled because these people have spent trillions of dollars. That's such a hard number to even understand. As humans, we don't get it. But they have spent trillions of dollars making sure that your attention is on them because we're in the attention economy, right? And so if you don't decide who you are, they will decide who you are. Do you want them to decide who you are? Do you want Mark Zuck to decide who you are?
Mm,
You want Bezos? You want Bezos to decide who you are? Mr.
no.
Jeff? I don't think you do. You do.
Yeah.
So
I
sit
don't really
down for
want
five
anyone
minutes,
to,
right?
anyone
Or
but
anyone
myself.
else. Right.
Yeah.
And this goes for your parents, this goes for your community, this goes for
Yeah.
your church, this goes for your whatever. And it's so crazy. I talked to my cousin yesterday and she's like, I just don't have the time. Huh?
Mm,
What do you mean you don't have the time? You can't afford to not spend the time because otherwise everything is taking you longer because you don't know
mm,
who you are. You don't
yeah.
have that connection, that strong connection between the heart and the mind is it's not there.
Mm,
You're having to parse through that every single time you make a decision. That's costing you time.
yep.
That weight is on you and you're not removing the weights. You can't afford not to do it.
Yep.
Your frame is wrong. Your frame of understanding what this stuff does for you is wrong. It
Mm,
allows you to move through the world quicker. It allows you to move through the world with less anxiety. It allows you to move through a world with clarity. You can't afford to not write in a journal, do some breath work, examine who you are. You can't afford to not find your voice. You can't afford to not heal your voice. And you certainly can't afford to not use your voice. Because if you know how to do those things, your pocketbook grows big time.
mm,
You know yourself, you know how to talk, you know how to use the gift of gab. In a world where AI is everywhere, what matters most is how you make people feel, is how you communicate, how you
yeah.
communicate in person with them. That matters more than anything right now.
Yeah.
You can't afford not to work on that. You can't afford not to spend your time doing that and knowing yourself because
Yeah.
AI knows everything else.
Yeah.
AI knows everything, everything. What? Everything, all the things. AI knows it. Well, you know what it doesn't know? You. It doesn't know how to make people feel better. It doesn't know how to make you more you.
Yeah.
Although I will admit, I have used the AI and I've used it every once in a while when I'm like stuck for a journal prompt. Like, give me
Mm,
30 journal prompts. And then I roll my eyes at myself. I know some people are using it for therapy because it's
mm,
cheap. It's cheaper than therapy. And so it's wild. But it
yeah.
definitely gives me the confidence that as far as knowing yourself, it can't know you. It can't
No.
know you for you.
Yeah.
It can't be in your heart. You can't implant it in your brain yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Still our job, still an inside job. Well, thank you so
Still
much
an
for your
inside job. Oh
time.
wow, what a great close. It's still
Yeah.
an inside job. I
Still
love
an
that.
inside job, mic drop. Well, we're
Yeah,
not
totally.
officially closed. Very quick, I ask all my guests this because this is
Yeah.
the You Love and You Learn podcast. What is
Mhm.
one thing you have learned about love? And it can be any type of love, self-love, love for
Mm.
community, family, anything like that.
What is one thing I've learned about love? If you don't love yourself, you cannot love others for sure. And learning to love yourself is free. There's lots of stuff out there that masquerades as self care and self love. If you don't know how to do it and you want to pay someone to teach you how to do it, fine. But it's all of that shit is free.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and I'll just add, I've found because loving yourself is kind of an ongoing journey that like the
Mhm.
more you love yourself, the more love you can have for others. But I used to put so much
Yes.
pressure like until I fully love myself, I can't love someone, but it's probably
Mm.
an ongoing thing that we build.
No.
So,
Yeah. The more you love yourself, the more you love others. I just learned something today. I think that's a better way to say that. Yeah, the
yeah.
more you love yourself, the more you're capable of loving others. You have more love to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Less
have a lot of
rules.
love to give. I love myself a lot. And I think maybe that's the other thing is I think that there are some, yeah, wow, unlocked right here, right now. I think that often as you grow in confidence, as you grow in love for yourself, there is a shame that will happen to you,
Mm,
that people will try to shame you for your confidence. Almost like a how dare you be confident? How dare you love yourself that much? And it's happened to me quite a bit. I am
mm,
confident. I do love myself a lot. And I think the difference between that and when it gets problematic is that I try to throw my love into other people so that they love themselves in the same way that I love myself, so
mhm,
that they have the
mhm.
same level of confidence that I have. My confidence is not in competition with anybody, it's the opposite. My confidence should be as a beacon, a light that I throw into other people and brighten them up as well. It's why I named my workshop You Louder. I'm
Mm,
trying to turn the volume up on y'all. I want people to feel more confident. I want people to feel more themselves. and I want to take what I have, which is a ton of confidence, a mountain of it, and I want it to go into others, and I want them to feel that confident because you can just achieve and accomplish so much more, and you can just be profoundly more okay when you have that confidence. And that's what I've been doing for a long time, and it's the coolest job in the world. I talk about my foot to floor time with my students all the time. You want to find something where when you wake up in the morning, your time between the time your eyes open and your foot on the floor, your
Mm,
foot to floor time. You want to find something where your foot to floor time is zero. You
hmm.
wake up in the morning and your foot goes on the floor and you're like, let's go, let's get after it today. I love this. And my foot to floor time is zero because every day I get to help people turn the volume up on themselves, to just be themselves a little bit more every single day. And I love that. What a little learning opportunity this was for me. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has
Yeah,
been fantastic.
of course. And would love to give you a chance to plug more of your
Oh,
work. Like, what do you have
sure.
going on that you want people to know about?
Yeah, I mean, you can head to my website, shauhindavari.com.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Okay, cool. And then, yeah, so you can head to my website, shauhindavari.com. I have a workshop, a 4-week workshop that is like the full product that I am doing. And it is the You Louder, the full series. The first week focuses on finding your voice. The second week focuses on healing your voice. The third and fourth week focus on really learning to use your voice. And with the opportunity in the fourth week to deliver a presentation so that you can get feedback from yourselves or from the class, from me. And it's going to be an amazing workshop. It starts on July 30th, runs for 4 consecutive weeks on Wednesday nights from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you're not doing anything on Wednesday nights, which nobody's doing anything on Wednesday nights right now because Survivor's not on, sign up
And
for the
Love
workshop.
Island's not on either.
Yeah, Love Island's not on Wednesdays.
No, every day but
Oh.
hump day, they say.
Oh, I love that. Oh, you're welcome. So now you
Yeah.
have something to do on hump day instead of watching people hump on Love Island.
Yes,
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah, so I will be launching a journal in conjunction with my class. That the people in my class will have access to the journal first, but I will be launching a journal in late July, early August that is a partner journal. It's you and your partner get this journal, has a bunch of questions that are aimed at fostering a deepening connection. I think it's super valuable for people to have that slow processing with their partner that we look at our partner and we get all oh, like they're so pretty or they're so this or and when you're in that moment you don't have the ability to slowly write down what your real thoughts are, to really get after some of the issues that might exist or
Mm.
some of the awesome things that might exist. It's a great place to show appreciation, and really the journal is meant to just like deepen the connection. And so that's coming out in early August, and you can look for it on my website. Follow me on
Very
TikTok,
cool.
on Instagram. I'm posting on there all the time, and it's not just like self-help content. It's just all kinds of crazy shit. I am having a very good time putting out a bunch of super fun stuff.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your authentic self with us. I know it will inspire others like it did for me. And I feel like I already have a few things that I'm sitting with, like, ooh, let's write about that in my journal tomorrow.
And you know what? I will do a code for your listeners.
Okay.
So if they want to sign up for what code should we have?
It
What
could
should
be
the code be?
YLYL, you love and you learn.
Okay. You love, you learn. YL, capital YL, capital YL. And you'll get 20% off of all services, 20% off the workshop if you sign up using that code.
Awesome. All right. I'll put that
Sweet.
in the show notes, everyone. Thank
So,
you.
I love it. All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Shaheen. And we will
Sarah,
talk
thanks so
more
much.
soon, I'm sure.
Appreciate it.
All right.